My name is Carol Bickford. I'm on the board of directors of the Sterling Society, which is the supporter of this Coffee and Conversation event. And I just showed up at the door and was told I was introducing our speaker. So the Sterling Society, if you don't know, is a support group for the Dunedin Fine Arts Center. We help raise money, and we also have social events to promote the Art Center. Let's just give a hand to Catherine and Nathan and Robert for making all of the work. Elizabeth Faubert is an artist photographer who resides in Dunedin. She has been studying photography and taking photos for over 40 years. She holds a master's degree in journalism and mass communications from the University of South Florida. And I'm sure she's going to give us a wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much, everybody. So like she just said, my name is Elizabeth Faubert. I've been living in Dunedin most of my life. And I've been a member of the Dunedin Fine Arts Center for most of the time, many, many years. As you know, photography has seen many, many changes over the years. Especially, there's been so many changes with the introduction of digital photography. I have some slides. So, I have been studying photography since high school. I was an art major in high school, and luckily my high school had a darkroom. So as you know, when you're studying art, you take all the different mediums, drawing, painting, sculpture. When I signed up for the photography class, I was so happy. The moment I went to the darkroom, I knew that this was it. And I've been making photos ever since. And I was in high school in the late 70s. And then I also studied art and photography in college. And as you know, the many changes in photography, like how many people in here have a camera in their phone? Everybody. Now with smartphones having cameras in them, we've seen many, many changes, and almost everybody is making photos everywhere we go. When I first started making photos, of course it was with film, and I was one of the only people that carried around a camera. I had my camera around my neck everywhere I went, but I was pretty much the only one, and people were always having me make photos of something or photograph them, and it was very exciting. But the other side was I didn't really show my photos to too many people, unless I had an exhibit of my artwork or something like that. Nobody really saw too much of my work, except my friends. And working in the darkroom, I was always so careful with the processing. Anybody that does photography now and has never shot in film, I highly encourage you to shoot some film and go in the darkroom. The Dunedin Fine Arts Center has an incredible darkroom here, and they offer darkroom classes. As a matter of fact, I just took one myself again not very long ago because it's just so much fun. And it's just so great to be in the darkroom and watch the process. And so when I was doing that in high school and college, and after that, I was always so careful, I never want to ruin the film or anything like that, With color film, I mostly had that processed at the drugstore, like Eckerd Drugs, and now, CVS. Some of you remember Eckerd Drugs, which is now basically CVS. And sitting out in the parking lot and waiting for my film to be processed and being so nervous. If I shot something that was just like a one-time thing that's never going to happen again, and I'd sit out in the parking lot just waiting, praying that nothing was going to go wrong with the machine. When I was in my 20s, I did work at a couple of 1-hour photo labs. And that was great because then I had control over the processing of my color film and prints. At one photo lab, I was in charge of the color enlargements, and that was a lot of good experience because at that time there was a machine that did it, but we used the enlarger. We still use the enlarger, and then we put the print into a machine to process the color prints. And I really learned a lot there also. So most of my work at the beginning was, I would photograph all different kinds of things. I'd photograph my friends, I'd photograph the beach, I'd photograph animals, I'd photograph, just whatever was around me. I'd photograph people at events and things like that. But it wasn't until I started to hone in on like one certain subject, and that was one of the things like about being an artist. I think it's great when an artist has a series of photos, I like that I was able to kind of take that deep dive into a certain subject. I almost forgot I need to keep up with my slides. Okay. So this is an example, so I still photograph butterflies a lot. Butterflies are gorgeous. I almost can't help but photograph butterflies when I'm at the garden or anything like that. I'm very involved with the Dunedin Community Garden. So, and one of the reasons I'm very involved there is because I used to go there and take pictures of the plants and the butterflies, etc. And I started to meet people there, and then I got more involved in the whole place of, the community garden. And that's one of the other great things about art. Sometimes when you're making art, it can lead you to other things that you can get involved with or that you love, This was also shot at the, thank you for that response. This was also shot at the community garden. I was just hanging out there one day and I happened to have like my long lens with me, and the osprey was up in the nest and it was kind of looking at me, so I just was looking at it through my long lens, and all of a sudden that baby popped up. They both looked right at me. And I want you to know that was with my long lens. A lot of people, when they see this, they think it looks like I was up high, but when you're far away and you have a long lens, it lowers that angle, you know what I mean? So if I was right underneath them, it would be like this, but since I was far away and they were up there, it almost makes it look like I was at their height. And of course, sunsets. Where we live, there's a show every night. So I photographed hundreds and hundreds of sunsets. And sunsets are beautiful. And you see, sometimes I like to put words with my photos, and I have nicknamed Dunedin Duntopia. Pass it on, because it's so beautiful here, it really is. So Duntopia is my nickname. And I've made a lot of photographs in Dunedin, of course, all around different places. This is one of my favorites. This is on Victoria Drive. And this is Dog Beach on Honeymoon Island. Another wonderful place in Dunedin, Honeymoon Island. We're so lucky to have Honeymoon Island, and we're so fortunate that they have a whole section of the beach for the dogs. So one of the things I want to talk about today is a couple of the things that I've gone in on a deep dive. So when I was in college the first time, I took a sign language class. My mother was hearing impaired from the age of 7, but she never learned sign language. So when I was in college, I studied sign language, hoping to use it with her, hoping to get her to learn it and use it with me. But she didn't. She wasn't interested. She did mostly lip reading. but I really loved sign language and the beauty of people's hands when they're signing. So when I was taking the class, I started photographing people's hands. And like for instance, one of my professors, I photographed their hand doing the sign for help. And this is the sign for volunteer. And it's perfect, right? Because so many times when we volunteer, it is kind of like this. And I think almost everybody in here knows I love books. So this is the sign for read. And that is a friend of mine that I used to work with at Barnes & Noble. Yeah, I did work at Barnes & Noble for many, many years, if anybody recognizes me from there. And this is the sign for patience. It's also the sign for quiet, but it's also the sign for patience. And this is one of my neighbors. His name is Merle. He's passed away now. I don't know if anybody in here might remember him. He used to eat lunch every day at the Dunedin Golf Club. He lived right near there, and I used to love talking to him every day. When I shot this photo, he was about 97 or 98 years old. So I thought the sign for patience was perfect for him. And this was something that, after I was doing the sign language course, of course I was working all the time, and I did kind of fall off of doing the hand photos, but then I got back into it later and really got into it. They're all shot in black and white, and they're all shot with film. Even though at that time, I didn't have a digital camera. But I shot all of these with film. It's part of the art of it, like I wanted them to be in film, and I wanted them to all be in black and white. And luckily, I did have an exhibit of these photos here many years ago. Some of you might remember that. And it was great. I was so happy to be able to do that. And since we're at the Art Center today, this is the sign for sculpt. And that is a friend of mine who is a sculptor. He used to have a pottery studio in Safety Harbor. So the sign for sculpt kind of goes like this. So since these signs, many signs in sign language move, but since my photos are mostly still, I did do a couple of them where it shows the motion, using a slow shutter speed. But because most of them are still, I do call these photos an artistic expression of sign language, because it wouldn't be a way to learn sign language by looking at these photos necessarily. Okay. So, when I used to live up on the Dunedin Causeway. Also, I lived in an apartment up on the Dunedin Causeway. That was great fun. I had a roommate. It was real cheap, by the way. The rent was $400 a month, and we each paid $200, and you can believe it. And I wasn't a baby. Anyway, it was great fun up there. Again, I was at one of those places where I was just photographing this and that. So I always have loved books, and I went to a garage sale, and I bought a copy of Mice and Men. I had a cat, and I brought it home, and I thought, I was sitting there with my cat, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be funny for my cat to read Of Mice and Men? So I was just laying on the floor with her, and I set the book up and just waited for her to look at it. There she is. Her name was Ethel, by the way. Ethel with a Y, like ethyl alcohol. So, anyway, so this, I thought it was funny, but I showed it to a couple of my friends, and they thought, oh, this is really good. This is funny. And one of my friends said, you should make this into postcards. And now, previous to that, I don't really remember ever doing anything with my work like that. I just kind of always did photography. It was mostly for me, or for other people, like if I photographed a portrait of somebody. But I said, okay, and then I had another friend who had a bookstore in St. Petersburg, and she sold the postcards at her bookstore, which was really great. I thought that was really fun. And I loved that everybody thought they were funny, because sometimes when I think something's funny, I don't know if everybody else will. So, but then I started thinking, well, what would a dog read? And I was working at Barnes & Noble and the Dunedin Public Library both at the time, so I had access to many, many books. So I started thinking, having more ideas and more ideas. And I just kind of went with it. And so what happened was I just would have these ideas, and it was kind of just like, that artistic process sometimes just happens. Like one time this dog jumped in the back seat of my car when I was getting my groceries out of my car. And I thought, oh, I know what that dog would read. And then I asked them, when the person came to get their dog, I said, can I photograph your dog? Oh, yes, So. And, when it's a little dog, when I was working at Barnes & Noble, that book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, was very popular. And I thought, this little tiny dog, I love that dog. Isn't he cute? So, I just love animals, and it was so great to be around the animals. And I really believe that a lot of times the animals knew what I was trying to do. So this one in particular, I chose because this was one of those times when the animal knew how to make the better photo than I did. So this is a Pomeranian, which is kind of like I call that like a fancy dog, And I thought it would be really funny for a fancy little dog like a Pomeranian to read The Call of the Wild. And I went over to my friend's house. This dog belonged to a friend of mine. I went over to the house, and we put we set it up with the table and the book and the dog and everything like that. And I was trying to get the dog to read the book. And the dog jumped down and went and got its baby. That's its little tiger baby. And it came back and just did exactly that right there. And you can see the dog is mirroring the cover of the book. It's really amazing, isn't it? So a lot of things like that happened when I was making these photos. I have a lot of different stories, but that's one of my favorite ones. This is the Dao Poo. And that was my dog. So, being my dog, I kind of knew what her bathroom habits were, so I sort of knew when she was going to go number 2. So I brought the book out with me, and as soon as she got in position, I put the book down. That one was shot in film also. Some of these were shot in film. That one was shot in film. And then, of course, what would the boxer read? Muhammad Ali. So the other thing about the art of photography is these photos are not photoshopped. I do use Photoshop and Lightroom and all that stuff, but not for these. These photos are not photoshopped because a person could take a picture of an animal and then Photoshop a book in there. Whatever book you want or whatever. I don't ever do that with these photos. And when I shot film, my film camera did not have automatic film advance or autofocus. So every time I was doing this, I was focusing, trying to get, because the animal, of course, moves around. And every time I wanted to advance the film, I had to take the camera away from my face and advance the film and possibly miss a shot. But that was part of the challenge of it, Now I do shoot a lot of these in digital, so it's a little bit easier, but still, no manipulation. That's part of the point of the literary animal. I call these photos the literary animal, and there's no manipulation on them. these photos have really been the most amazing experience for me as an artist. Because when I started making these, then another artist friend of mine, his name is Dennis, he's not here today, but Dennis, Kathy knows him, Dennis said, you should do art shows. You should show your work at art shows, I was doing all this work and everything like that, and I said, oh, really? And, oh, yes. So I'm always appreciative of my friends when they encourage me, because I don't really think of that on my own. I think I'm basically kind of shy. So I said, okay. And then Dennis had a birthday party, and this other artist was there. I'm not going to name her because I said to her, yeah, I think I'm going to start doing outdoor art shows with my work. And she said, oh, they're so demoralizing. Because, it's tough. You're out there, you're showing yourself. And sometimes people walk by and they will say something like, they just don't care, But I have had the best time doing that, because the first art show I did, I set up my booth and I put out the photos, the literary animal photos, and people were coming up and looking at the photos and laughing, and I just thought, this is the greatest thing in the world. I'm so happy about that. Let me see if I can get it back. There it is. So, and that just made me so happy, to make art and have people come up and be happy to see it, I mean, I appreciate serious artwork, but I think that my personality is more like, I like to be funny, when I'm shy, it helps me to laugh or something like that, it kind of takes the shyness away. Oh, by the way, I forgot, I wanted to tell y'all, did you all hear about the cat who went to the library? No. This cat went to the library and said to the librarian, where's the tuna? And the librarian said, this is a library. And the cat said, oh, I'm sorry, where's the tuna? And this was a great photo too. This also was a dog that belonged to a friend of mine, and it just so happened that they worked out. They had the weights. It went in perfect. The boxer, the Muhammad Ali book. And this is a special one because I live near Hammock Park. I'm sure you all know Hammock Park. And this guy used to walk his dog there, and every time I would see his dog, I'd think, oh, that dog looks like the dog in Old Yeller. But what happens when you read Old Yeller or watch the movie? Everybody cries. So I thought, I have to have a box of Kleenex in the photo. And me and this guy, so I asked the guy, can I photograph your dog? Oh yes. That's another thing, I'm really amazed at how many people I say, can I photograph your animal reading a book? And they go, yeah. so anyway, you should have seen us, he and I, because of course the dog kept moving around, like it didn't just sit there, believe me. And then I'm picking up the book and my camera and the box of Kleenex, and we're going to another spot, and the guy's calling his dog and everything. It was hilarious. So that's another special one for that reason. And just making that happen with the box of Kleenex in the photo also. And isn't that rabbit beautiful? Yeah. So when I saw that rabbit, I thought, oh, that rabbit looks rich. And I knew exactly what book it would want to read. I had to borrow all that money from somebody. I know it, right? I asked a friend of mine who's a waiter, can I have some cash for my photo? I love this one because, I went to the park. I don't usually go to the park and feed squirrels, so I didn't know what was going to happen. But I went to the park, brought some peanuts with me, I set the book up and waited and waited and waited. The squirrel, of course, was very timid. I have like other photos of it, like peeking around the outside of the tree. But I thought this was great because it actually picked it up and bit into it right there. And that's really what I wanted. That's the shot I really wanted for the nutcracker. I wanted it to be cracking the nut at that moment. And this is another one I really love because when I was a child, my mother always had those little tiny holy Bibles. You've probably seen them at souvenir shops and things like that. You know, and really on the inside, there's text. It has all the text in there. You can read it with a magnifying glass. So I always thought those were so cute. So I kept them all these years. And I thought, you know, what would read the Bible? A praying mantis, of course. It did take me a while to find a praying mantis, and then finally one day I was out in my yard, and there it was. And I was like, and I brought it in, and I put it in front of the Bible, and it did exactly that. It just did that. I did not put it like that. It did exactly that all by itself. So for the South Beach diet, I thought, you know, a pig would read the South Beach diet. Where is there a pig? Now, honestly, now I do know a couple people that have pet pigs, but at that time, I did not know anybody. So I just started asking people, do you know anybody that has a pet pig? Do you know anybody that has a pet pig? And this guy said, you know, there's a pig in somebody's backyard on the 8th hole of the Largo golf course. So I went to the Largo golf course, and I said to the guy that works there, can you take me to the 8th hole? Yeah. So he takes me to the 8th hole. I see the pig in the person's backyard. You know, there's a fence, of course. I see the pig over there, and I'm thinking, so then I asked the guy, do you know how I get over there? Well, he says, you have to go down West Bay and over this and on Ulmerton, you know, to get to that street, you know, way back there. So I did it, and I found the house. I went up to the door, and I knocked on the door. Yes, I did. And I said, can I photograph your pig reading the South Beach diet? And that woman was so nice, and she said, yes, of course. And the pig's name is Rosebud. And I'm still friends with that woman. I'm friends with her on Facebook. We still keep in touch. But that was amazing. You know, just think of somebody coming up to your door, you know. I also did that with an iguana. Somebody had their pet iguana outside in a cage outside their front yard. And I went up and, hi.
Did the diet work?
No. And then this is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Of course, that should be a bird. And when I put the bird there, the bird flew over the book, so I thought that was perfect. I really like this better with the bird actually flying instead of just sitting there looking inside the book. And then this is my cat. So I do a Christmas card every year, a literary animal Christmas card every year. So during the pandemic, I thought, you know, the Winter Our Discontent is the perfect book. And I wanted my cat to wear the mask, so I fashioned a tiny mask for her. And of course, she hated it. You know, why did I think she was just going to put that on? So I offered her $500. Yeah. I said, I'll give you $500, and she did it. I'm telling you, the animals, they know what's going on. And then this is one of my favorites. So this is one of my favorites, and this one just happened recently, just a couple months ago. But part of the reason I wanted to show you this is because I just want to remind everybody how dreams come true. So many years ago, you know, one of my ideas was would an alligator read? Well, of course an alligator would read Tourist Season by Carl Hyacin. But I thought, where am I ever going to find an alligator? I mean, I am afraid of alligators. I would never go to a park or something like that and try to lure an alligator over. So one day I went to the primate sanctuary in Altona 19. I wanted to look at the chimpanzees and things like that. And I was walking around, and then I saw, I went over to this other part. There was this, I don't know, about a 4-foot cement wall. And I thought, what's that? And so I went over by the fence and I looked in and I saw there were alligators in there. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's alligators. And the first thing I thought was, maybe I can get a photo. And while I was standing there, and I wasn't real close to it, they have a fence about 4 or 5 feet from the concrete wall, so you can't get real close. But while I was standing there, this guy came out from they have a little shack behind the enclosure, and he came out. He was going to feed the alligators, I guess. And he came out from there and he said, "Come here, Elizabeth." And I thought, oh my God, I said to him, do I know you? And he said, no. And he looked at me like, why are you saying that? This alligator's name is Elizabeth. You cannot make this stuff up. So I thought, okay, this is a sign, this is meant to be. So I talked to him and I asked him if we could make the photo, and he said yes. And it was great fun, and I learned a lot about alligators, and it was really amazing to be that close to an alligator. They were even, to be that close to one was more incredible than I even thought, So I really love that one too. And I think I should send that to Carl Hyacin. And then, of course, that's a poster that I made. So another dream come true was a book, because I love books, and I always wanted to have a book of my photos. When I used to do outdoor art shows, I always hoped that maybe somebody would come by and say, maybe somebody in the publishing industry, and they'd say, this should be a book. Well, anyway, no, that did not happen. But thanks to technology now, we can all make our own books. So I made my own book, and it's called The Literary Animal. And I have some copies over there. And that is also a dream come true, to have my book. Thank you. So, and then I have a few other photos because, one of the things that we were going to talk about a little bit was just, what makes a good photo and things like that. I have to say that getting ready for this presentation was challenging. I really have been making photos for about 45 years, and there's really is so much. That's why I just concentrated on the more recent things that I do. But I do all kinds of different things. I really do love photography. Just like that previous slide when I talked about the importance of photography, photography is a way for us to connect with people and to honor events that happen, honor history and everything. So I highly encourage everybody in here, if you make photos, to print them. Printing photos is easier than ever now. You can do it from your phone or from your computer. You can just send them to CVS and they'll print them for you, or Walgreens or whatever. Because when my mother had her 95th birthday, my family all came over and we were all sitting around the old photo albums and looking at them. And I thought, it's really important to have these photos as time marches on. I also do other work, like I do graphic design work. I do, I've done all different kinds of photography, like I said, and I still do some of that. But I also do a lot of work on the computer, design work and logos and postcards and websites and all that stuff too. And I brought this photo because this photo shows how you can use color in a photo. The red cardinal really stands out against all of that in the background. the light on this building makes it more interesting. The way that I was going by that building and the way the light was sitting in, I thought, oh, that's really cool. If you just photographed the building without that light, it wouldn't be as interesting as that. And then I brought a few photos of kids that I photographed where kids don't always have to be smiling in the photos. Sometimes it shows more of the personality when they're not smiling. I think this little boy kind of tells you he's a little boy. He's a rough little boy because he's on his motorcycle with his bat. Teenage girls, they have some very serious moments. And I love this one. This is the light. See, this is a sunset, but it's not like your typical sunset photo. This is when I was over at a friend's house, so there was a whole bunch of us there, and afterwards we all went out into the backyard, and the sun was going down, and these women walked out there, and I don't know what they were looking at, but I saw this, and I thought it was really beautiful. Yeah, showing emotion in photos is very fun. You can see what a good time he's having. And the anticipation. He's getting ready to slide down a slide at the water park. And with animals' point of view, I do like to try and get at the level of the animal rather than to be up above. I mean, there are no hard and fast rules in art. Everybody knows. We learn everything and then we can break the rules. But I do like to photograph animals at their level. And humor. I love this photo because that is a roofing company. It says A+ quality roofing. Look at the roof. Every time I went by there on my bicycle, I used to think, this is not good advertising. And this was taken at the Ringling Museum. A friend and I went there, and this guy was photographing the statue, and she's trying to cover up. And the security guard is looking the other way. And that's what I like to call the decisive moment. I saw this and thought, that's a photo. This is another example of lighting. And like you saw before, I like to put words with my photos sometimes, and this is one of my favorite quotes since I was very young. And I used to work at a private school, and this is one of the kids at the private school. She had half of that egg, so fragile, with her little tiny hand and her little dress in the background. And this is one of my favorite quotes. And that's the last slide. Thank you so much. So when I first started making the literary animal photos, I thought maybe I could get 12 of these to make a calendar. That was at the very beginning, and now I have literally hundreds of them. So I'm very grateful for that. It's been so much fun. And have you all ever heard of Mary Engelbreit, the artist Mary Engelbreit? And you know how Mary Engelbreit has all these different things, magnets, postcards, cards, curtains, you name it, right? So I said I always wanted to be the Mary Engelbreit of animals reading books. So the literary animal maybe will be coming on a bed sheet to use that. Anyway, I'm so grateful and appreciate you all being here. Does anybody have any questions? I think that this is the time now for question and answer.
Are you selling your book today?
Yes, I am. Thank you for asking. I'm selling books today. They're $12, and I also have cards and stuff. I brought a bunch of different things for y'all to look at.
Can you speak to copyright? Can you speak about copyright?
Oh. What would you like to know about copyright?
Well, people see pictures and maybe they want to take a picture of that. And I know your logo is on there. So do you have any specifics about copywriting?
Well, I
pay
have,
for copyright.
well, luckily, I've never really had an issue with that. In photography, basically, if you make the photo, it's your photo, you know. I don't know, I don't know, I've never really looked up the law on that, but I think that if anybody ever wanted to challenge it, you know, you just have to prove that you made the photo. I don't always put my name on everything. Sometimes I like the image just to be by itself, you know, without my little logo on there. I know it's really difficult now, especially with digital and everything. It's really challenging, you know. Sometimes people do have their work taken by somebody and used for something else, you know. But basically, somebody should never use a photo and sell it. Never make money with it, you know. Like I said, as far as I know, nobody's ever done that with my work, so I've never really gotten that much into it, but thank you. Go ahead.
I have a question about your alligator photo. That expression that you caught on his face was amazing. How many images did you take to get that?
I was very lucky. That was really the one. This is what I mean, like I really believe that when things are supposed to happen, they just happen. And the way I shoot, I think because I learned in film, I don't typically shoot anyway. I usually like to just do, you know, a few shots. I don't like to just do. But when I went to photograph the alligator, really, we just put that book down and the alligator just walked over and did that. I mean, it was really, I was even surprised. I had my camera, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know. So I probably made 3 shots and that was the best one. Thank you for asking that. Go ahead.
I was wondering how close you were to the alligator.
I was a safe distance because the guy that, you know, owns the alligators was there, so I wasn't in trouble. But I was probably about 10 feet away. And I wasn't afraid because he was there, and they had just been fed.
Did you place the book there, or did he place it there for you?
He did place the book there. Yes, he did. Yeah, you know, he told me that I could, but I said, that's okay.
What kind of camera do you use?
Oh, thank you for asking that. I have a couple different cameras. I shoot Canon, so all my cameras are Canon, but I have a Canon 5D, which is an older full frame camera. That's my favorite. I like full frame. You know, digital cameras can be either full frame or cropped sensor. Full frame is like a 35 millimeter negative. Crop sensor is a little bit smaller than that. So I have another camera that is crop sensor, and then I also have a mirrorless camera.
As an artist, I thought there was a rule of thumb you follow with composition, and I noticed a lot of your animals are cut off. And I always thought you never cut off the legs or the thighs, or you know, and I'm just wondering how you come to that.
That's a good question about composition. I think that, you know, every artist just has to decide. And my photos with the animals reading books, you see how the book basically always has to be facing the same way. So I don't have a lot of range in that. And sometimes it just would be, the composition would be off if I kept the whole animal in there. And sometimes it's not important to have the whole animal in there, like the alligator. It would have been too far away if I kept the whole alligator in there, so. Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about just your camera, your phone, taking pictures with your phone, and you mentioned something about in the advertisement. It said about saving photos, but taking photos and saving on the phone.
Oh yes, that's right. She's asking about using my phone or using a phone to take pictures and then saving them. So yeah, that was one of the things. If anybody has any other questions about saving photos, you can always contact me afterwards. But I store my photos several different ways, and I do use my phone a lot. So on my phone, I have Google Photos, which also backs them up into Google Photos, which is, you know, a whole other thing outside of my phone. So every time I take a picture with my phone, it's also going to Google Photos. So even if I delete one in my phone, it's still in my Google Photos. And Google Photos gives you a lot of storage for free, and you can also purchase more storage if you like. And then of course on my computer, I have everything backed up. I mean, I have an external hard drive, I have Time Machine, you know, I also put things on flash drives sometimes, certain things I put on flash drives. When I shot film, I would get the film processed and I would have everything burned onto a disc. Because, you know, at home I can't put the negative into my computer, but I can put the disc into my computer. Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
It's finding things that you say.
Finding photos once you've shot them, and where are they now? Yeah, good luck. That is a challenge. That is a challenge. I have spent time searching for a certain photo in my computer, I'll admit it, you know, but I try to name things and put things in folders that I think of first. You know, what's the first thing I think of for me? Where should this go? You know, because sometimes what somebody else does might not make sense to me. So that's how I basically do it. And then still sometimes I forget. But I know it's there somewhere. The great thing about looking for something is a lot of times when I'm looking for something, I find other things that I wasn't looking for that were really cool. So, yeah.
Any tips or tricks on how you get a dog photo or cat photo because they like to move around a lot?
How do I get the dog and cat photos when they move around a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think sometimes it's just patience is one, and then just being able to work with the animal on their level. You know, like I never try to force an animal to do something. You know, I kind of like see where they are going, see what they're doing. You know, I do talk to them and I say, please, I know you're going to love this book. I know this is the perfect book for you. Please, 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 you know, and usually they just, that's what I'm saying, like animals are so amazing. Like I think sometimes they just understand what I'm trying to do, you know, and they're just willing to cooperate, you know.
What's the longest time you've ever spent trying to capture an animal? And then what's the shortest time you've ever spent? And what animals?
That's a good question. What's the shortest time I was trying to photograph an animal and the longest time? Well, I don't think there's and it's not necessarily an amount of time, although sometimes it happens fast, like with the alligator. That happened pretty fast. Because with an animal, I would never keep going like for longer than maybe 15 minutes or something, because you know I don't want to wear out the animal or get the animal upset. You know, I don't want to stress the animal out. You know, like any animal, you don't want to be trying to make something happen that's not happening. But there have been times when I've gone back and gone back and gone back. Okay, it's not happening this time. Go back again. It's not happening this time. Go back again. That happened a couple times. I photographed an owl with a book, and it was at a, I forget the name of the place, but it's in Largo. It's an animal sanctuary, you know, and they have owls there and everything. So I had talked to the people that work there, and they helped me with the owls. But the first time, you know, owls are wild animals, even if they're at a sanctuary, you know. And the first time I went down there, no, the owl was just not having it. You know, and the owl was like, no. So then I went back again, you know, and like the next week I went back again. And we tried something a little different. And that didn't work either. And then I went back again. So that was 3 times. But it wasn't really a length of time. It was 3 trips.
What was the book?
Yeah, that's right.
Harry Potter. Oh, well, the large black and white prints I printed myself. The color ones, honestly, I usually get them printed at Walgreens or CVS. They're very inexpensive, and they do a great job. You know, if it's a good photo, typically the printing process is really good now at those places. You know, they have their machines calibrated, so they really do a good job. And there's only been a couple of times where maybe the print didn't look really good, but and they always have a sale. You know, like when you go on Walgreens or CVS, they always have some sort of a coupon, you know, 50% off, 40% off, or whatever. So I use that all the time, and it's really good. Good question.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for a most interesting and entertaining presentation. We hope you'll come back again sometime. Coffee and Conversation is generally the third Thursday of each month right here, although sometimes the date does change depending on the schedule of the artist. So thank you all very much for coming, and members of DFAC, thank you very much. Oh, the schedule for Coffee and Conversation is usually on the DFAC website, www.dfac.org. So thank you very much for coming, and